Hey, good evening, chops and chopesses. Oh, to another old session from the Wise Asylum. I don't know. It's just getting worse, isn't it, with these Bolsheviks in? Oh, they're all coming back now. The old Bolsheviks are coming back and joining them again, and it's just disgusting. What can we say? What can you expect from the other side of the bird? The left wing and the right wing working together. The left wing pulls in all private business into the state. And then in comes the capitalists, the right wing, and they move all that stuff that they pull into the state, into private hands of the elites. And still people think there's a difference between the left and the right. Well, of course, they're all working to the same tune. It's a load of nonsense. It really is. This nonsense. This guy, he makes you sick, doesn't he, to look at him? He makes you sick to actually see his face, and to know that he's been rinsed by Jimmy Savile. And here he is standing at the top of the tree telling you can't smoke outside. What the fuck is that? The audacity of these freaks, the unclean. Oh, and why can they do it? Because the masses are so off their head with nonsense, so cowardly. Cowardice everywhere. And that this idiot can stand there and say, oh, well, we're going to stop you smoking in the garden. Oh, that's outside, ladies and gentlemen. And he's arrested all these people, these kids. Kids. Arresting them. And the guy that did that fight that we saw the other week on the live stream where he kicked the shit out of a copper and then got his head kicked in himself. No charges at all brought to that. Nothing. Not a thing. How much more blatant can they get? Rubbing it in your face. They're saying to you, Islam is just another branch of our system. That's what they're telling you, that we're putting this in now because it serves our purpose. It's quite ridiculous. And, we discussed last week, and the week before, these doctrines that they've been forever, haven't they? And religions are built off them. However, when you actually study the doctrine for yourself and apply the intellect as opposed to the emotion and belief, you start to see that actually the religions are nothing like the actual meaning of the doctrine. None of them. Therefore, these religions are serving something else. They're serving something else because something else is controlling great swathes of people, or if we go back to the concept, humanity, to their own ends. I mean, the elite are very clear about this. Religion serves a purpose. Meaning they don't succumb to these systems of belief. They control them and they use them. And today's elites might not even have set them up, but they use them. And it's like, why and how can that happen if everybody's running around in accordance with the morality of these doctrines, which is, and we're not getting into the ins and outs of what's right, what's wrong. We're saying this is the reality. There's three great religions made up of masses and masses of humans who believe. They believe what they're told because they don't study it themselves. And if they do study it, they don't comprehend it. Or if they do comprehend it, they hide behind it, pretend. And there is no religion out there that doesn't do that. Because it's off kilter. They're not correct. They don't represent the doctrine. You know, these doctrines are a test for you as a sentient being, you might say. Where are you really at? Are you full of shit? Is your heart dark? Because if it is, you're going to dance to all the nonsense that fits in with your dark heart. Whereas if you're using your intellect, you're looking at it and you're going, well, hang on a minute. That's what that says. That's what that means. There's no in-between halfway house. But play with on your emotion and belief of somebody else's narrative that you've had shoved down your neck, and you're heading straight to hell. Straight to hell because you're too stupid to realise that you're fooling yourself. And so tonight's theme is Antichrist. What is it? What actually is this thing? You know, if you, from the religious perspective, each are blaming the other. Oh, it's going to be a Jew. Oh, it's going to be a Muslim. Oh, it's going to be the Catholic Church. Each of them cemented in that belief, in opposition to the other, without giving it any intellectual examination as to what this is going to be and what it is. And that's the sad part of this. Everybody is running around fooling themselves because they're obedient to a belief system that somebody else has given them. Or because, of course, they're not looking at this stuff. They don't study it for themselves. And like I said, if they do, they don't comprehend it. Or if they do, they then use it as a shield to hide behind it because they know they don't come close. So I suppose the essence of what I'm going to say tonight is that a true Muslim isn't going to be an Antichrist. A true Christian, you might say, isn't going to be the Antichrist. And a true follower of the Torah is not going to be the Antichrist. It cannot be, by definition of the doctrine, if any of those three belief systems are operating correctly, and that means the morality within the biblical tradition, then you're not a true Muslim, a Jew, or a Christian. You're not. Regardless of what glamour you've puffed up around yourself and hide behind. You're fooling yourself, and that's it. End of story. You know, if you really do believe that you want to be in tune with the Heavenly Father, you really need to get to grips that you're not. You're an absolute unclean creature, and the universe is going to feed you exactly what it is you're spouting. Even though you're hiding and not spouting it really, you're pretending. You're pretending, you lie, you obfuscate, you run away when questioned. When reality is brought to you, you run off, attack the other. Oh, well, and you never sit there and accept that, hang on a minute, something's been brought before me that I need to examine here because I could be off kilter. You see, that's the difference between a spiritual creature and an unclean creature. The spiritual creature will stop right there and then, recognise something's been brought to his attention or her attention that it needs to be examined, and will go away and work it out. The unclean will pretend, will run away, talk shit, and then or attack you or attack another belief system, just so it doesn't have to accept, because it's running around thinking it's hiding, we're allowed to deceive. Well, two religions are allowed to deceive, and that is a fact, because it's in the doctrine. But one religion isn't allowed to deceive, and that's Christianity. Yet, the majority of Christians today are Zionists, doing exactly that, running around full of shit, lying their little tits off, and hiding behind it, pretending. And so there's no, it's not all against one and all for another. And I've watched quite a lot of interesting debates of late of people that you definitely without doubt understand, or let's not say understand, have remembered copious amounts of verse, of parable, etc., that's biblical and Quran. And these people, you can't get away from the fact they can memorize this stuff. However, it doesn't take long before they show themselves to not comprehend it. Or, if they're comprehending it, they're hiding that comprehension because their role is to get you to swap from one program to another program. And that's going on all over the show. And I've been watching and keeping a close eye on some of these real experts in remembrance, but they show themselves very quickly either not to comprehend it, or they're just there to get you to swap a program. And that again is, I suppose, what you might get an understanding from when they say many false prophets. Because again, if you're not applying your own intellect to this thingy, you're going to fall foul of the trickery that's being played by these minds who are trying to get everybody to swap about. It's interesting to watch. It's interesting, but it's sinister at the same time. Now, obviously, some of them are just not capable of comprehending. That's the ones that you'll see run off and cry and scream and attack. They've lost because they've been outed in a sense, kind of thing. But then there's those that are really a bit smarter about it, but not smart enough. You know, they're not smart enough to fool a man who comprehends what he sees, what he reads, and what he hears, as opposed to believes. And it's such a huge difference. But it's happening. It's going on all over the show at the moment, and there's a big move in it as well. And obviously, it's being allowed. So it's part of the gig. So I would perhaps present some of these guys, which we're not going to name because we're not getting into that game, as false prophets. Interesting, though it might be, to actually just see the abilities of some of these people who clearly do have it bedded in their mind, the parables, the verses, from all over the shop. But it's the comprehension that's important, you know, that's where it's at. Because if you're not in tune with the morality, and it all goes back to the Bible, even in Islam, at the end of the day, the Quran's very clear that Muslims have to accept, acknowledge, and abide by the patriarchs and the prophets of the biblical. So that's the Old Testament, which includes Moses and his 10 Commandments, which are taken from the Egyptian confessions. But it also includes the Gospel. Because it's very interesting when it comes to Islam. Muhammad's only mentioned in the Quran 4 times, but Jesus is mentioned a hell of a lot more. And the only female mentioned in the Quran by name is Mary. So there's no getting away from that for as far as the Quran goes, in that if you're following it to the truth, then you acknowledge and accept the moralities in the Old Testament and the New. And this is where the Muslims, in my opinion, miss the game completely. Because first, the Quran makes it very clear that it's all in this book, right down to the detail. That's your first test. Your first test. But they bypass that because the imams are all over the hadith. So you're following the Sharia, which has been formed by these imams who are going outside the Quran and breaking that one. The second one, of course, is Allah makes it very clear he is not the father depicted in the Bible. So he's separated himself. He's saying, I'm not connected to the Bible, but the Quran says you must acknowledge, accept, and abide by the morals of the Bible. Second test. Yeah, because when you get to that point, that's where you would stop, because the majority of that book is encouraging you to break the morality is found in the Old Testament and the New. in its entirety. Unfortunately, that's what it does. So if you were true, you'd be following, you'd know that you'd be to leave that alone and go straight to the morals of the Old Testament and the New. That would make you a true Muslim. That would put you in sync with the Heavenly Father, not this guy or entity that separated itself from that in the book. It's the same with Christians. You know, it's very clear. The only thing you need from the Old Testament basically is the Ten Commandments, and the fact that it's very clear in many, many, many parables that God does not respect persons. So you can't be a person if you're following that. As soon as you're off that, you're no longer following the tradition. You're not in sync with the tradition, regardless of what you believe, regardless of what emotions you might invoke in yourself to believe. You're not in sync. And just off that alone, you're certainly then not in sync with the gospel. In any way, shape or form. You're not following the tradition. It's the same with the followers of the Torah. You go into the Talmud to explain to you what the Old Testament means. Garbage. As Hillel Babylonian said, who were brought into the Second Temple to run it because there were nobody about 30 years or so before the birth of the man. And that was when he was asked, what is the Old Testament? What does it mean? And he said very clearly, it means do unto others as you'd have done to yourself, and that the rest of it's a commentary around that. What happens when you don't? This is all what happens. That's what happens. You can't be any clearer than that. That's the same message within the gospel. It's in Islam. You know, look after your neighbour as you. I mean, I'm paraphrasing words here because we're not going to get into this. I'm firing off. I know this, I know that. I've remembered this, I've remembered that. You don't need to remember any of it. Just follow the train of thought that it's putting you on so that you are in sync. Because they're all running around now. You've got this doctrine that says this is the way. We've got the Elohim. These are all entities of Zeus, Allah, Jehovah, or Yahweh, as he calls himself, and the Tales of the Barbello, Odin, all these characters of the Elohim. So basically, the moment you come off the actual doctrine, whichever tradition you think you're in, the minute you come off, you've come under a Barbello, you've come under a Elohim, be that Yahweh or Allah. You're off. You're not following the main, you're in this game, this other game here. And it's so important that people grasp this stuff, because Antichrist, what is it? Well, we looked at the Paris Olympics, didn't we? The opening ceremony. And the thing that bothered me and fixed me, because all else was just to ruffle feathers. You know, the Last Supper, all that stuff, that was just to ruffle feathers so the elites can have a look at how's that affected everybody. To what degree are people fixed into these programmes? That's basically what they were trying to work out off that. The most important aspect of that opening ceremony was the passing of the torch. Because very clearly to me, it was being passed from the faceless one, which we could class as the Elohim, whichever one you want to choose, to what was clearly a representation of the body corporate. The body corporate, the machine, the corporation that runs the corporations. That's the banks, the banking system, the Vatican Bank. Remember, again, this is so important that people remember this. The Vatican does not represent the church. It has not been so since at least 1929, when the Vatican was rehashed and shaped into a corporation and a state, a corporate state. and the church was just tossed asunder. But because there's a guy up there claiming to be a pope, people still identify church being that. It's not. The Vatican system is a bank. It is the height of this corporate system in the public. In the private, behind that, are the Holy See families, the banking dynasties. So the Vatican as a state is an instrument. In the public, below that is the United Nations, which of course is the administration for governments. You've got the Bilderberg Group. You've got the World Health Organization. You've got the Trilateral Commission, Royal Institute for International Affairs. And you've got the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations. All satellites to that, but ultimately at the core of that is the Round Table, set up by the trustees for this banking system, who you know as the Rothschilds. So if you're calling yourself Jewish and you're on side with that, then know that you're off the Torah and you're working for the banking system. If you're a Christian and you're into that Zionism, that nonsense, which in the main comes out of the Protestant side of things, the evangelical mix, you are in that system that you're decrying. If you're a Muslim and you've not followed the morality, the keeping in sync with the Heavenly Father or God, then you're playing for the bank, the mosque. Because it's a bank. It's just another bank. And you as a community are extorted to fill that bank with money. And they'll only lend it interest-free, which is what they all pop on about, making it sound like it's better and different, will only be given to those who will expand that bank. It's all banking. So in the three religions, the moment you come off the moral train, you are in the banking. And you're operating for the banking. You're operating for the anti-logos. If we want to get clear on what the Christ is, the truth of things, you may say, the Word. In the beginning was the Word, the Logos, which is sound. That's what creates all this thing. Light comes off it, magnetism comes off it, sound is everything. And you're not on that moral train. You're on this banking system, and it doesn't matter which religion you're following. You're off. You're not correct. You're working for this banking system that you shout down all the time and blame. Yet you're in it. You're making it happen. So this Antichrist figure cannot be a true Muslim, a true Christian, or a true follower of the Torah. What's he got to be? Well, he's got to be a supreme representation of the corporation. Hasn't he? He has to be. Who are his apostles? The front and fake billionaires. Soros, Musk, Zuckerberg, and on and on. They're the apostles to this Antichrist. Now, from all intents and purposes, if you go on a lot of the prophecies, it does appear that this Antichrist is going to be presented as being a Muslim. And that ties in Obama, which ties in the Bolsheviks, which ties in Starmer, Blair, Putin. And even though Trump's running around pretending to be a capitalist, you've got to understand, the left and the right are two wings or sides of the same coin. The left, communists, pull in private enterprise into state control. And then the capitalists get the turn and they privatise it. So the left is pulling in what was yours as a right to private enterprise into state control, and the capitalists privatise it into the hands of BlackRock, into Vanguard, the S-corps for the private trust that ultimately the banking system acts for, The beneficiaries, of course, being the dynasties behind that. So the Antichrist is going to represent corporatism. And corporatism was given a name by the very same force that created the Vatican State as the uber corporate entity. And that was Mussolini, who coined the phrase fascism. When the corporations merge with the domestic system, fascism as a political system is in place. Well, that's exactly what we're all under. But people miss the point a bit because we've got Bolsheviks in now and they don't assign Bolshevism to fascism because if you go back to the Second World War, it was supposed to be about Bolsheviks fighting fascists. No, the Third Reich was at its high and its elite level Bolsheviks. Or Jesuitism, which again is separate from the church. The church was sidelined a long, long time ago. And when the Jesuits were brought back in and forced back into the church after their expulsion, things started to change. I mean, the Jesuits were the uber corporatists in the sense, if you study their efforts in South America, they basically created their own countries, their own nations, and became a separate entity to the church. This is why they got thrown out into the hands of the Prussian Empire, with Catherine the Great and a big chunk of them in Corsica. Napoleon did his trick and subverted all the, what you might say, Catholic or kingly nations and monarchy systems, demolished them and subverted all the knight orders subordinate to the Jesuits. That's what Napoleon did, basically. He knocked off the old Venetian party of the north, which was headed by the Habsburgs, and brought in this new system, which headed by the black nobility, the Welfs, the Hanoverians, and the likes, who then were shoved on Blighty. Freemasonry were changed from a builder's guild into an occult system, and the rest is history. But this Antichrist figure is going to be a capitalist. He's going to be an uber corporatist. And the reason why he's going to be able to bring in good and sound sort of ideas for how we get out of whatever trouble we're in when he actually finally rises is because he is the front for all the nonsense that these corporations have created in all nations across the globe. You know, when you're building this system, you know all the get-out clauses. So that's what they're going to give him. And people, if you go back to the Catholic tradition, are going to claim him to be God because he's come up with such fantastic solutions. And he's going to accept that. He's going to accept that he's God and force people to worship him as God. Now, this is where I can say there is no true Muslim going to support that character that's claiming to be God. Is it? No. So no true Muslim is going to go with that. They know this. This is why they've got Islam everywhere and giving it the idea that, go on lads, Islam's going to be mighty. You're being set up left, right and centre to piss off everybody whose nations you're in. And I know it's not the homegrown Muslims. They're at a bit of a loss here with what the fuck's going on. No, they've had to bring in all these fruit bats from the subcultures that know nothing else in order to excite this, to have them pray on the road, to have them beat up white girls. It's not a game, this is real. And you're being set up like you wouldn't believe. To act exactly how you're acting. Because, of course, you're following. You're not on the right track. You're on the banking system. Like the Zionists are on the banking system. So the Antichrist is going to be a representation of the corporate system. No matter what religion he may claim, he's not of it. And if he does claim to be Islam, it's only to further the excitement of the Muslim at the detriment of his own standing in the eyes of all non-Muslims. See what's happening in China. And I know that the homegrown here, like most of them, they might not see it fully, but they know that this isn't right. You're correct to think it's not right, gentlemen, because you've absorbed life in the West. You know that it's not all insidious. Okay, some of our cultural, let's say, norms are contradictory to your belief system. But it is a belief system, and it's a belief system that were required in the nations that you came from. Because most of you males don't have that self-control that we created here in the West. So, of course, your first thing is, oh my God, look at them, they're evil. It's nothing to do with being evil. It's about creating a culture whereby you can be free to be and do as you wish within the boundaries of the laws pulled in by the biblical tradition. Do no harm, don't thieve. Yeah. But to you, because it's such a higher morality, you're not there by definition of your own culture, but you've been born here and you've lived here a long time. And you have picked it up, whether you know it or not. But you've got a conflict between what you're taught you to be and what in your heart you know you are. But I'm telling you, you're being set up. This is a setup. 100% set up. So when you're looking at this Bolshevik government that's in here now, showing everybody that it's supporting you, it's only a means to an end. This shower of shit that are in now are not going to last that long, I can tell you now. They're just ridiculous. I mean, and this guy that they've put in is an absolute unclean. They couldn't have put a more unclean, slimy character. But of course, they're depending on the fact that they've disabled a big majority of the population in the last 4 years. You've got to be really careful here, what you follow, what you accept. I mean, they're pushing out now all these apostles, not quite apostles, but the apostles, you might say. The lesser, lower classes that might have a few million celebrities, you know. And like with Tay, I'm not sure. I quite like so a lot of what he said, because he's pulling out the masculine, but he goes way over the board with it. To the point that he's no better than some of these feminists that he decries. You know, he's got the masculine energy, but then he goes ridiculous with it. Exactly the same as the feminists do for the females. You're not doing them any justice. And he's tying himself in with all the wrong people. I'm watching this as I'm watching this game play out. It's the apostles, the billionaires, bringing up the lesser apostles, so just to bedazzle you. That actually all these people know what they're doing. And, you know, you're bedazzled by the fact that they have cash. They throw it around, thrust it around and throw it in your face. And loads of money. You know, it's back to 80s, all that. That's when all that kicked off. Loads of money. I mean, that guy that did loads of money, I can't remember his name, I found that. That guy's bloodline. That guy's, what's he called? I can't remember his name. You know, loads of money. That guy, very good comedian, don't get me wrong, and he's done a lot of stuff. That guy's so high level bloodline, you wouldn't believe it. He's played an agenda, and it's to get you all bedazzled by riches, the glamour, as the ancients called it. You're surrounding yourself with all this glamour to hide who you really are. And people are falling for it. Left, right and centre. So it's not just the religions where you've got issues, where you're fooling yourself. It's in general, where you are as a creature is what you're following. That's where your dance is. And they've got you on all different angles, dancing, thinking you might be separate from it, you know. You're not. It's all part of the same system that supports the banks, ultimately. So this Antichrist guy, you've got to recognise what he is, regardless of what religion he may claim. He is a corporatist. is at the corporatist level that doesn't acknowledge or abide by any belief system. None of them. But he's playing a role. He has a destiny to fulfill in order this place can be cleansed of those that fool the self in order they can fool others. It only lasts so long. You know, I mean, everybody knows everybody out there who playing a game, fooling everybody, but the persona doesn't match what you know about who they really are and what they're really doing. It only lasts a certain length of time. And then it blows itself up because that's natural law. It's the way it is. So when you look at this system that's going on now, it's really all about you as an individual. Because you as an individual are determining what you're dancing to. And you might feel safe in numbers, but ultimately it's not serving you as a spiritual being. But it's serving the spirit because you're proving yourself. You're proving your worth and you're showing it because you can't help it. You can't help it because it's who you are. And you're dancing to the wrong dance. We're on a last chance corral for people to get a grip. At whatever stage you might be in this world. Nobody's more important than anybody else when it comes to this spiritual game. Nobody's more important. And glamour doesn't determine importance in this game. You're all on your own. Every single one of us are on our own. And we alone are determining what dance we're dancing. And it's so important that people get that. And of course, people have lost touch with the fact that have faith in your own path, have faith in the universe, in higher powers, because they're there. People have lost touch with that and feel that the only way out is to join the herd. Safety in numbers. You're fooling yourself. You're fooling yourself. The road of salvation is ending. You're all going to fix yourselves to the timeline that you've earned. You're on your last chance corrals, people, to turn this around for yourself as an individual. And this is the reality of the situation. And we can sit there all day looking at all these fruitcakes, but they're playing a role. What you've got to recognise is, what is their role? They're unclean. Why would you follow them? Where do you think they're taking you? Where do you think they're taking you? You know, reckon with yourself, because that's the only way forward in this time now, because things are closing in. You know, these people are fanatics of what they believe, and they've nothing but hate in their heart. They might fool themselves and believe, well, I'm working on destiny. You are, but that's because that's the kind of character you are. Not because you're actually a good guy and you've been chosen to do this against your good nature. No, you've put yourself in that position because that's who you are, and you will be used by the universe to show yourself who you are. I mean, so many of the elites that I remember back in the 90s that had this idea that because they'd worked it out, that they were actually serving a purpose, i.e. with a tester. Yes, you are, but because you're such an unclean freak, you've earned that point and position to carry out that role. It's not something you've been asked to do because you're such a good person. You've gained that role because that's who you are. And it used to make me chuckle to myself because I knew they couldn't see it. And if they did, they were hiding from themselves. Just hiding from themselves like they do. But you know, shit is going down, folks, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of shit. And it's coming down the pipe a lot faster than people recognise. And yeah, you reckon with self. Are you real? Or are you going to carry on dancing this fantasy island that's going to turn into physical reality down the line? And You know, it's more important you consider what happens after this place at this point than worrying about trying to prevent yourself from leaving this place and going to the next. Because that's what's driving you, fear. You know, safety in numbers, all the garbage that we've discussed in these live streams. It's fear that's running you. You know, nobody gets out of here alive. Take that on board because it's real. But where you go after this is going to count. And where you are now today and the path you're going to tread from this moment forward is determining that what comes next. And it's important. I know people have lost track with that completely, but that's unfortunate. But it's never too late. That's the mantra I've always worked with. It's never too late. You're never too old. Ever. Even if it's 2 days before you pass. If you've made a recompense and a reckoning with yourself, it would add a bonus one way or another to your path and future outside of this place. So only the body dies, nothing else, just the body and everything that the body's accumulated in this physical manifestation. That's all that dies, the body. Nothing else. You don't. Who you are, that little spark behind those eyeballs, that doesn't die. It just moves somewhere else, goes back to somewhere else if that's what you think, or it'll go wherever you've earned. Wherever you are at that point is where you're going. The same frequency. So if you're looking at it in frequency standpoint, then yeah, your frequency, you can only pass back to that frequency, but without the physical manifestation of a body or an avatar, whichever way you want to look at it. But you know, these guys are going crazy now with this. Everything they've done this year has been about looking at what they failed to control during the last 4 years. And of course, the biggest thing or problem they had was social media. They didn't have enough control over social media. People, smart people, were putting it out, and people with a brain cell were picking it up. That's what all this is about this year. It's about nothing other than taking full control of social media. And what he's announced this week in relation to stopping smoking, you've got to understand what that is. Hitler was one of the first things he did because it breaks the grapevine. It breaks the ability for knowledge and information to be passed on in the grapevine. Now, of course, the social media in its entirety was all about taking the grapevine into their hands. Internet, telephone. The grapevine shifted to that. They can control the grapevine. But the first thing they did was start to break down the grapevine in where you socialise. So no smoking in the pubs was the first major hit. Hike the prices of that alcohol. The second major hit. And now look what he's done. So putting doormen on the doors as well, that were another one. You know what I mean? Because in the 80s, there were no doormen on the doors, just at the big nightclubs. But you didn't have doormen on pubs, and you didn't even have doormen on most of the nightclubs. And then they started putting them in. And that pissed everybody off. Most of the battling that went on in the early 80s was the public against these bouncers who thought they had something about them. But slowly but surely it gets accepted. Then it were ready, they got them in, the drugs came in, that's where it were all being played out. And everything works. It's a system. Go back to the Matrix films where the architect says we've been doing it for a long time, we're very good at it. They've been doing it for a long time and they're very good at it. If you don't see past the spell, if you don't see the game, they're very good at it. Because it's a systematic, non-stop, boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden, it's too late. It's too late. So everything that's going on this year is about now controlling and smashing the grapevine by smashing the social media, because that's where the grapevine's being transferred to. Yeah, the social side of everything's gone in it. Everybody's at home watching telly, playing with their phone. There's very few people go out anyway nowadays, and them that do are just hardcore alcoholics in the main. It's not like it used to be. A lot of it for social. You know, you've got to see it in this way, and everything that's happened this year, Southport, Tommy Robinson, all this excitement has been about pulling out them that have got a bit about them, so that they can just knock off their head and scare everybody to death. And now it's all about social media. The billionaires are playing the role, aren't they? Brazil. You've got UK Bolsheviks here attacking Musk. It's all part of the play. They're not heroes, these people. They're the apostles of the antichrist, the corporate system. The system that deals with the dead. The system that deals with a concept called the human. And when you get in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it's very clear that the human has to be afforded all the rights of the person. It's a concept, it's a construct, and that's what is conceived by the system the moment Mum goes and visits Eve. Humans. The human. What's everybody crying about? Human rights, human rights! Last thing you want to be doing is claiming to be a human. Last thing you want to be doing is claiming to be a person. Because this entire system, by consent, your consent, ignorant consent, is based entirely on person. The incorporation of your flesh and blood with a dead entity. It's the underworld. Osiris. It's the underworld. The human. That is what they're doing. And everybody, for all the wind and piss crying about it, you're doing it yourself. You did it to your offspring. Ignorantly so. But there's been enough people out there now for the last 30 years, and I include myself, telling you, you weren't interested. Nobody give a shit. It wasn't until 2008 that people actually started to go, huh? That was the first point that I noted that my efforts changed somewhat. It wasn't super easy anyway, but that's at that point, 2008, is when people went, huh? What are you after? What are you saying? That was the first point. When people started to cock a wink at this, hang on a minute, are these people maybe not as crazy as they're made out to be? It's not like you haven't been told. You didn't want to know. Now you need to know. You're more open to it today, after the last 4-year gig, than ever before. This is why they're attacking social media and the internet in general. That's what all this is about, this kerfuffle today. That's what all this about Storm are doing, which is why I said, don't fall for this Tommy Robinson gig and get excited and get out on the streets and think you can do something by shouting, swearing, throwing bottles and calling people names. That's the mind of an infant that thinks that's going to solve anything. It isn't. Not going to solve anything, but look what it's brought upon us. Look what it's brought down. I mean, they're exaggerating it to the degree it's insidious, but that's what power does. Power never gives power up once it gains it. Everything they're doing is just to gain more and more and more power. So that when this idiot comes, whomever it is, you're going to have no other option but to obey it. Give it what it wants, whatever that might be. And a big part of that is going to be consensually handing over your estate, putting you into perpetual slavery. But we know the plan. We know the plan. Gates has told us. Schwab has told us the plan. You'll consent to it and then they can knock you off. Because they want the world for themselves. They want to restart it get rid of everybody, everything, keep as much of the infrastructure as they can this time, and start again. And the ones that they're going to let stay will be fixed to computers and machines, if you're lucky. And this is all in the doctrine. Again, they haven't hidden this from anybody neither. It's all in there if you've took the time to study it. It's all been out there for everybody to see. And there were more books about it pre-1900s. It was never a secret. It was only a secret from people that didn't want to know. People that were believing in things that they shouldn't have been believing in, which meant they didn't really need to know. So it's never been a secret. It's always been there in the background for those that wanted to take a look. And that's the end of the Sunday sermon. So, who's joined us tonight? And we'll have a little look at one or two subjects, but that's pretty much all I put together for tonight. I didn't really even put it together. It were just thoughts I've had during the week, or the last few weeks, and I thought it needs to be put together in a way that people can grasp and understand. Because, yeah, the game's on, and they're not playing, these people. They're playing for keeps. Benefactor says, as always, I'm looking forward to receiving a notification for a Sunday live show with the Life in the Mix goes live. Thank you, Sean, for the wealth of knowledge you share with us. You're more than welcome, Benefactor. And Cos1973 gives it the wavy hand of the alien. Thank you, Cos, and good evening to you. PY Music says, good evening all. Good evening, Paul. Jerry says, hi, Sean, and all in the Wise Asylum. Good evening to you, Jerry. June says, good evening, Sean, and to all the panel, good evening, June. Slipknot, all right, Sean, Jackie, and everyone, hello to you. Paul says, good evening, Sean, and fellow inmates, good evening, Paul. Alexander says, evening, Sean, evening to all, good evening, Alexander. Big E says, greetings, Sean, and everyone. I sat here for 20 minutes, waiting for your show to start. Then I realised it was Saturday. Oh, well, there you go. Saturday. Oh dear, heck. Well, at least you've joined us tonight, eh? Well done, thank you for that, and good evening to you, sir. Mew says morning, afternoon, evening to one and all. Alright, Sean, alright. Jeff. Mark says, evening, Sean and all, good evening, Mark. Debbie says, evening. I'm not unclean, I spend more time than most in the bath, says Debs. And I believe you, Debs. Lorraine says, evening, everyone. Good evening, Lorraine. And we get the love out there. Mew says, bathing in yak's milk, Debbie, with rose petals. Oh, well, that's posh. LFX gives it the thumbs up. Lorraine says, Mew Pit, I'm Mew. Hope all is well. Mew's hello to Lorraine. Dom was in St. Helens last night with Devlin. Did you go to St. Helens? Blah, 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 blah. So Mew says, okay, they're just chatting amongst themselves. Blah, blah, blah. AMG Maniac says, evening all. AMG Maniac, evening to you. Space Offer Mark says, how do you? Meander V, there seems to be a push towards orthodoxy by some of these Christian influencers on YouTube. Yeah, and or evangelicalism, like, what's that spastic called? What's he called? I can never remember the names because I really don't pay attention. That English actor dude or whatever he's called, I forgot his name, but he's now a Christian and he's an expert at it. He's been born again and he knows everything about it. Brand, that's him. But that's Alpha. So that's the Alpha course, which is pure Satanism, by the way. I have a report on it for anybody that wants to look at it. I'll put it up under this link. But there's a very interesting piece. So I wrote the piece about 15 years ago. And then an high-level Satanist in Australia died. And his daughter published his memoirs. And that's where you find out exactly what Alpha is from his memoirs. Now, I did have the entire memoir up there on the older sites that got took down many moons ago. But when I put it up on this one, I shortened it a lot because there's just so much in there. It wouldn't really make any sense to you unless you're aware of these secret societies and the many orders and such that there's gone on. So I tried to make it a bit less convoluted and I just shortened it somewhat, but you get the gist. So yeah, I'm aware of that. But the orthodoxy, you see, this is another interesting point, and I've pointed this out many times, but the Bolsheviks completely annihilated the Russian orthodoxy and took it over completely. So what's classed as Russian orthodoxy is in fact full-blown Bolshevism parading itself for Christianity. And this is what Putin's tied to. And it supports the no-hide trust. But more importantly, he's managed to get a lot of Western Christians over to its side. And more fool them, is what I'd say. And Vatican II, in its entirety, places the Vatican system, so not the original Roman Church, which has been sidelined, reason why you got Malachi Martin, reason why you've got Archbishop Vigano saying, hang on a minute guys, this has got nothing to do with the church. But Vatican II put the Vatican system entirely under command of the Russian Orthodoxy, which is why the prophecies of Fatima were saying back in 1917, if you don't consecrate Russia, game over. We're going into this antichrist system. And now you've got this Francis geezer saying he's going to consecrate, blah, 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 blah. For God's sake. I mean, I've never come across such a obnoxious guy, and yet people, I can't believe there's people like Catholics still following that. I mean, what are they? They're certainly not Catholics that I've met and know. There's something else, probably more in tune with the Orthodoxy, or just full-on believers of any old garbage that gets pumped out from any old orifice. Where were we there? Yeah, so that's Meander TV. Yeah, quite right. Stuart Bradbury says, I won't expose you, you won't expose me. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what to expose about you, Stuart, my old China. Or are we talking about the Dream Team compadres, the underlings of the apostles of the Antichrist? Upward Dog says, Mew Pit, you okay, mate? How do, Upward Dog? And welcome. Profane says, evening, Profane. Lex says, evening, Sean and all, evening to you, Lex. LFX says, Yahweh, like Frank Sin, Your Way, 2025 remix. Okay, I'm not sure I'm aware of that. Unless you're just playing with words as usual, you do. Profane says, ancestor veneration over religion. Right, yeah. LFX, Wrath's Child. Well, Red Shield, isn't it? That's what. They were Boers. And Boer is a very old Roman bloodline. So they were Boers. And Boers are still around. They're still a mighty family today. But they became the trustees of the, you might say, I think Eustace Mullins coined the phrase that they are the chief financiers for the hidden royal court. So in trust laws we deal with, they'll be classed as trustees. That's what they are, trustees to the ultimate trust, or fondy, as they call it, the old money amalgamation. David says, howdy peeps, howdy to you, Dave. LFX, yup, defo in the club. And we've got Dancing Queen. Upward Dog says, hi Sean, have you come across Jason Arcaics? I think your expositions and his combined would be dynamite. We have, and we sort of introduced our inmates to him quite a few years ago. There's a lot about Jason I like, because a lot of the books that he's cited, a lot of the books that he's really investigated, I've studied in the 90s. So I know he makes a lot of sense in what he's saying. There's a few, so Claudio has sort of took him to task, not personally, but in relation to we that know Claudio, in relation to some of his counts, but they're on the same track with the Phoenix cycles reoccurring. So there's a few differences on there. I think the simulacrum side of what he's saying has value, but I think he's a bit off kilter in the matrix we're in. This system of the damned, the dead, could be said to be a simulacrum. It's a copy of an original. Because everything that these unclean do is a mimic. They mimic the creation. And if you've studied the old Norse, you can see that clearly in there. But it's a mimic. They make it, take the piss out of everything. Everything that's real, they take the piss out of, and they've created this other system. And of course, you're off kilter in your religious comprehension, and you're in this other system. You're playing the mimic. So we know him. Now and again, I do. If one comes up sometimes, which it does, and I've got nothing going on, I will watch him. And I do like a lot he's saying, because a lot of what he's saying and talks about as his foundation, I've read back in the day, and so I'm aware of it. So yeah, so we like Jason, we do. But of course, like everything, we don't take everybody verbatim, because we do like to use our own brains or our own minds when we attack to comprehend. That's the Wise Asylum. No rules, apart from if you want to pull me on something, that's fine, pull it, present it, but don't talk bollocks. We don't like bollock talkers, and we don't like people that come on, throw shit and run off. That's garbage as well, and they get short thrift on that. But otherwise, outside of that, all is welcome in the Wise Asylum. But we don't suck on shit, and that's pretty basic, and that's it. But no, we like Jason. We like a lot of what he says. We do. So yes, up with dog. Lorraine says LFX Sinatra Atra equals Latin for black dark. Sinatra's Rat Pack Mob. Pewter playing up tonight. Well, I mean, I used to watch. You know when they did the roasting at the MGM, and it were Dean Martin was the host, and they used to roast each other. I got to see exactly what was going on there in the sense of what John Wayne had always said about Hollywood being taken over by the communists. What you could clearly see there, and Sinatra played probably one of the biggest parts of it as a Knight of Malta, was pulling in the Jewish side of the Catholic Church into power, into Hollywood. And I could see that by watching these MGM roasts. You got to, because of the people that were there, the people that they brought in, I really could see what Sinatra and the Rat Pack were really all about. Now, I'm not so sure Dean Martin understood it. Ronnie Reagan were involved, remember, as well. There were all these stars that were all in there. And John Wayne, of course, was opposing all that. But, of course, John Wayne was he was a member of the Egyptian mystic shrine, a shriner. But yeah, interesting, isn't it, how all these secret societies oppose each other at the lower levels. But as I learnt in the 90s, as you raise yourself up on this, they're all amalgamated. It's all one big thing. Like dealers of cocaine. At the bottom end, you've got your doormen, you've got your mad lads, you know, your gangsters like a fake. But as you go up there, they wear suits. They wear suits and the police work for them. Yeah, that's when you're getting into intelligence and you're getting into the higher ranks of these secret societies. And of course, I was lucky. They thought I was going to join that. So they showed me. And of course, I didn't join it and threw it all over the fucking floor and said, here you go, everybody, this is what crack is. Did anybody listen? No, did they fall? Here we are, where are we? So yeah, thanks for that, Lorraine. Stormer is like the evil pantomime dame. Slime. That's what I see, like I did with Tony Blair. before he even got in, I'd started, I were commenting on a lot of newspapers. Not on the internet, I'd send letters in, and they always had a letter section. And as they started to raise Tony Blair, I sent a letter to the Lancashire Evening Telegraph and basically just put a piece in basically saying, here comes TB, like as tuberculosis kind of disease. And I was proved right. Same with Obama. I were on the London Telegraph then, but this was on the internet. And fair play, there were a lot of Tories in there, proper old Conservatives, and they were supporting what I was saying because they knew I was right. And Obama came on the scene and everybody was just so sick of Bush that they were all praising this Obama character, and I just said, no. And I actually coined the phrase, oh bummer, which did get bandied about for quite a few years back in the day. It's surprising how many phrases, actually, that I have set off in the old internet world over the years. And even today, still some of them, like, what really enamoured me with the Yanks back in the day before I got thrown off Alex Jones was I used to respond to abso-fucking-lutely to a lot of questions and such, if they were commenting. And the Yanks loved it. They fucking loved it. And I even see that now being bandied about sometimes if I'm looking at some Americans' comments and so. So it's really good to see that stuff that I did years ago is still in the mix and has got bedded in. It's quite interesting how you can actually affect things without being at the top of the game, in everybody's ear or on everybody's screen. You can still have an effect, like a bit of a lone wolf character. So, I don't like him. He's a bitch, isn't he? Well, Jimmy Savile rinsed him. What do you expect? And there's another Jimmy Savile Fleabag coming up. We'll have a look at that as well in a bit, just to take your attention off everything. Harry Enfield, that's the chap. Now that guy's a high level bloodline. If you seek him out and look into him, very high level. And if you take that as fact, and then look at what narratives he created from the 80s, you can see the play of that man. Very important guy, and he wrote a lot more than people think in a lot of other sort of sitcoms and other sort of things in TV from the 80s through the 90s. A very powerful, important character is that chap, Harry Enfield, yeah. Solvemist says, hello Sean, sorry I'm late. Apple accepted, Solvemist. Welcome, my good man. LFX says, artistic license to take the piss. It's not even taking the piss, it's downright, it's an attack. Everything that these bastards are doing now is a full-on attack. Starmer fixed it for Sauville. Well, he did. Jimmy fixed it for Starmer, and Starmer fixed it for Savile. Yep. Mark Orford says, people have been bedazzled by the silence of my dazzle lamp. Yep. Be careful. Nobody wants to discuss facts as the facts remove the key blocks of the Jenga of life. Well, they don't want to talk facts. Everybody's so sort of fixed into the fantasy. I mean, my biggest problem back in the day with people were all this here, because when I first got on the internet in 2007, which were late, in all truth, but the work I was doing previous to that, it was important in my mind then that I made it clear to people, because I did everything written, and I'd deliver it to all politicians, all the councillors everywhere, and I did that for 7 years. But I made a point of fact of letting everybody know that this knowledge that I had didn't come from the internet, that I'd never even been on the internet. So it was very important then, in that 7 years, that I got it across that I'd never been on the internet. Everything I knew, everything I'd learned was from books and from my experiences in that 7 years of mystery school. And so it was important then, but when I got on the internet, oh, did I wish I'd got on the internet so much earlier. Because everything were up there. So I relate on there. And what was my point? I forgot. I can't remember what I was getting at. I had a point to that and I forgot. Oh, It were all aliens. Aliens were the big thing then. That's what were all over the internet. And everybody attacking their de jure state. And I were getting across all the time, look, it's not your state that's at fault. It's the fact that the corporations are now running your state. And that's fascism. Because people didn't understand these concepts then. It weren't in the mix at all, what fascism actually was. And that took me about a year, I think, to get that in the mix. And then all of a sudden, and this were another good one, all of a sudden, the entire internet were attacking corporate state. Fascism were in the mix. It were all brilliant. And that's how it works, you know what I mean? It were good. Because back in the day, I had a lot of people who used to follow what I was saying. It were good. And I knew I were having on right track because I were banned from everywhere as well. That's always a good sign when you get banned from everywhere. And then you take all your websites down, one by one, over like a 6-year period. You know you're doing something right because they don't like you. Hi, Sean and folks, it's Sparky Lee. Hello, Sparky. Big E says, wealth by gold alone is a reflection in the eye of another. Lorraine says, have faith in ourselves. Exactly, because it's the only power you've got, really. You can only move your own life. You know, this idea that people think that they've got power over another. It's fleeting. You know, it's not actually you've got power over another. It's the other wants to be nice to you. They want to be... And I think this is the problem with females, women. They're not females, are they? Women. They just... I mean, you look back at the game that they've played, and they weren't secretive about it either. The Rockefellers set up the suffragette movement. So basically, the way they've undermined the West, and I'm sorry I keep banging on about this, but this doesn't let the males off, by the way. But the real power they've had in undermining the West is by turning the females fruitcake. Turning them into women, not females. And that has been so powerful, especially through the 60s, when free love, contraception, abortion, and homosexuality were being thrust everywhere, stopped the procreation of the race. And then the demolition of the family, because it was the 60s generation that did it. When I was growing up, because my parents were, the 60s were their time, well, they'd all been fucked up on LSD, hadn't they? They were all pissheads. And by the time we were getting to like high school age, so like from 11 onwards, then it started to hit, all these divorces were going on everywhere. Everybody were getting divorced all over the show. And all, so many of my mates, mainly the lads, it didn't really affect the girls in the same way, but the lads, getting dad cast out of the family just wrecked them. It wrecked everything. In the 80s were just a complete and utter shambles in relation to keeping the Gen X males in order. Everybody just went off the rails, all the lads. And then when they brought drugs in, that's it. That's where they went. So it were a clever game they've played. And not letting the males off, I'm not. But by turning the females stupid, and then, of course, the social state, it played a big part in that as well. You don't need them, we'll pay you. It's been so clever how they've done it. And look at the mess we're in today. It's terrible. Know thyself, says Mew, absolutely. Neat one. False idols. Oh, very good indeed, neat one, and welcome. Solfamist says, trust your gut, don't second guess yourself. Never. In my life, at any point that I've ever come a cropper, I can always trace it back to that time when I ignored myself. Unfollowed. Got excited with the gig, followed others, and... No. You can look back, and anybody can do that. You look back in your life, and them times where you went right off the rails, and I did quite often, but I was younger, I don't regret it, because I learned a lot, but at the end of the day, you look back and you can think, oh, that's the time I ignored myself and listened to some other dick, and off we went. And you probably had a fucking good time as well, to be honest, but at the end of the day, you can actually... Every time I went off the rails, it was because I'd stopped listening to myself. But I don't regret it, is what I'm saying as well. I learned from it, and you can't do any better than that. Mew gives it the loves and the scales and the feather. Yeah, absolutely. Lorraine says they didn't realise how powerful the internet would become. Yeah, they did. They knew exactly what they were doing. It's a double-edged sword is the internet, and now we're seeing the dark side of it. I mean, the internet for such a long time interconnected the entire globe to knowledge and information you would never have got. You know, and that was the great side of it. But we're only a short window. Now, it's taken the grapevine. Everybody's lives are embedded in this electronic false simulacrum. And now they can censor it. They can censor today what they could never do before, and that's the grapevine. Although that's one big thing Hitler had to do, and that was to stop smoking and to break up the social networks. So they knew exactly what they were doing, Lorraine. LFX, frequency, frequency. Okay. DJ from 88, evening show, late arrival again, going to have to watch catch up again. Hello, DJ from 88. And welcome again, no problem. Jane says, there will soon be no pubs. Exactly, Jane, that's exactly what they're doing. And welcome to you. I don't think I know that moniker. So welcome. Yeah, exactly, that's the plan. No socialising. No socialising. This is why they want to take control of the streets. I mean, I've noticed in shutting off roads left, right, centre. You can't do that to the highway. You can't obstruct the highway. And it drives me up the fucking wall. It really does. I mean, especially when I see traffic lights on a roadworks where it doesn't need to be traffic lights. The impulse for me to get out of my car and throw all the fucking traffic lights on the pavement is strong. And I'm pretty sure one day, when I'm in the right frame of mind, that's exactly what I'll fucking do. Because obstructing the highway is against the law. I mean, obstructing the roads is a different gig. But I'm not on the fucking roads, I'm on the highway. And under the rules of occupation, every single one of us has to be allowed our expected rights and freedoms. It's just that most people today don't even know what they are because they're all humans running around as dead persons. Which is why the majority of these videos I put out is all about person. It's so important. So welcome, Jane. Lorraine says hospitality industry is on its knees. Yeah, it is. Because people have no money as well. That's not helping, is it? No wonder, Sean. Well, again, price of the pint. I mean, so I went out with my daughter's 31st. We went to a do it afternoon. Then we all went into town. I couldn't believe price. £7 I paid in one pub for a pint. And I just thought, I'm just not even counting. I'm just going to get on with it, have a crack, and not even... And I never even counted it after. I thought, I'm not even counting it. It's ridiculous. I used to go out on a Sunday night, because Accrington were a great night on a Sunday night here. Everybody were out from everywhere in the 80s. And halfway through 90s. And I go out on £10 and come and crawl home. Crawl home, seriously, on £10. I used to cry when it was £1.60 a pint. And that's when I stopped drinking, so 95 or something like that. When I said stop drinking, I didn't drink for like 15 years at all. But if I'm out, I'll drink. I don't mind. I mean, I can take a lot of ale before I'm pissed. You know, I can drink a lot, to be fair. And then, of course, through the 90s, I played out with all the chemical stuff as well. So I'm very well established with that kind of stuff too. So, you know, if I go out, I can enjoy myself. I can. I mean, I did feel quite old, I have to say. And I was watching some of these youngers and I'm just thinking, fucking hell, that's what we were like when we were that age and we thought we were bees knees. We thought we were best things since sliced bread. But yeah, it were a bit weird and funny, but I enjoyed it. Where are we there? Solvme says there's only one sure bet in life, that is to back yourself. Yeah, absolutely. And support other people that are doing the same. Because that's what we need to do, come together. It's no use coming together with fly-by-night idiots. They're pointless. They're no good. What's the old saying? I can't even remember. It references a tree, and that even branches on a tree, referencing family even, they're there, but not when you have a strong storm. They'll snap off because they're just not up to it. You know, it's so important that like-minded people start to come together and support each other, you know. I like Alan Watts' teaching, very soothing in my opinion. Are you talking about the Scottish Alan Watts? Because he was brilliant because he spent all week picking up reports and going through them properly. So I used to enjoy him, but he didn't like me. He didn't Alan Watts. Where are we? So yeah, I used to follow his stuff because if I wanted an insight into what was going on, you couldn't do better than to listen to his podcasts, and I used to listen to him every week. But the man didn't like me, unfortunately, because he were a Aggie squeezer, weren't he? At the end of the day. LFX says, human rights. Yep. Ryan Ormrod. Good evening to you, Ryan, and welcome. Evening. Lorraine says, there are plans to tax our homes. Well, they're already bloody taxing your homes with council tax. It's already there. Where are we here? Mew says, digital money is the final nail. Well, they're on with that, aren't they? Squeeze us financially till the pit runs right, says Lorraine. Yep. LFX, Ruse Russell, or Ruse Sell. I don't like him. He's a smart cookie. He's got... he's a good rhetoricist, but I don't like him. I don't like these celebrities anyway. I started watching telly a long time ago, and all these new celebs, I don't really understand them. I just look at them and I think, God, I can tell why you're not telly. You're a freak. But yeah, I don't buy into any of it, honestly. I'll tell you what changed things. You remember Lockerbie? And then Emmerdale Farm did a gig, didn't it? Where they had a plane crash. Every soap opera changed from that. So that were a telegraphing. That were a massive change to television. And then everything just became misery. Because it's a control mechanism, is that? And that is this. If you were fixed to these soap operas, and them soap operas are just a little bit more miserable than your life, you think your life's okay, and that's the boiling frog. Yeah, and I worked that out a long time ago. Yeah, you just that little bit more miserable than your life, and you then think, oh, things are not that bad then. Clever stuff in them. Them soap operas have been so instrumental in mind control, especially women. It's unreal. Because women do love the telly. It's quite worrying. Where are we there? Jerry says, like it, LFX. Schism. Oh, wait a minute. I've gone down a bit too much. Public humiliation to move to the next level. Yeah. And David says Shriners wear fez as Islamic images. Yeah, I know. And the sword for the decapitation. I've actually covered it quite a lot. In fact, I'll put it up under this video for you. I've done a full piece on it. But it ties into the Noahide 21st degree Prussian Knight, the Noahide judge. So the way that the Holy See have got this Noahide system in here in the West is through Freemasonry. 21st degree Prussian Knight. So all your inspectors at police level are directly operating for the 21st degree. All these security companies like Jeff Cape set one up, then he's involved in all this shit, this private security, which were all set up with the drug system when they put that in. And to be quite honest, it's either killed a lot of Generation X, put them in prison and ruined them, or they've gone up there and joined it. This is why you've not got any rebellion going on. They're all Generation X boys are fucking screwballs. And it's sad. It really is. Because if they were all still there, if the 80s, if the 80s masculinity came back in the boys like my age that went through the 80s, I don't give a shit how big your country is. I don't care how big your army is. You wouldn't stand a chance of taking over this country. Not a chance. And I mean that. I mean, anybody that went through the 80s, you know what I'm talking about. If that masculinity came back for a week, for 1 week, that's all it'd take. 1 week of that back, you'd be fucked. Anybody coming in here telling us, you'd be gone. In that week, you would fucking flee the country. Because violence was the 1980s. Make no mistake about it. And the thing about it was, it wasn't evil, it was good fun. It was just enjoyed. Every male did it, it was just crazy. If we brought back 80s masculinity for a week, it'd solve every single fucking problem this nation has got going on. And believe you me. But they've all been fucked up one way or another. Where are we there? Seeing a lot of that, Jerry Son of Mick, seems like this whole place is steered by that. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Jerry says, most definitely, yeah. Like somebody's trying to steer karma. Ooh, interesting. Well, they are steering karma, exactly. That's probably one of the best anagrams you've given so far, that, my friend. 25 points out of 10 for that. Lorraine says, always a good sign to be banned from everywhere. Oh, absolutely. Of course it is. And they took another video down this week. And now I've got a warning. So I'm thinking, and the day's numbered on the old YouTube for Life in the Mix. Or what? So I don't know. But I've always got my website. You know what I'm saying? I have a bit of effort to put into that this month, which I'm going to do. And that's what I love about the Swiss. They don't fuck about. And if I don't fuck about, they're not going to fuck about. Just straight, you know? And that website has had a lot of attacks in the years it's been up, since 2015, I think, this one. And they just don't get anywhere, because them guys are on it. And then they let me know, oh, this is such a, they tried to this, that, something, and we smashed its face in. They're great. They're absolutely amazing over there in Switzerland, regardless of what everybody says, you know. It's a full nation, and not everybody in that nation is tied to Geneva and the shit that goes on in Geneva. And my website's in Zurich. And have you ever seen Zurich? It's a beautiful place. Where are we? It is a good sign to be banned from everywhere. That's why I know my pronouns are fantastic and amazing. Where are we? LFX, you're bored. You're bored. Someone says, asylum hack for the chat. I think Yandex is a search engine, uncensored, like Google. Yeah, well, I use Yandex for private emails with certain people. You never get spam. Although I think it's changing slightly now. I have to do your fucking robot and all that malarkey. But it's Russian, innit? It's a Russian gig. And never got any spam ever. I'm not saying 77 and Unit 8200 not stuck in it, giving it an earwig. But like, they know well, anything that's important, they don't get to see or hear because I don't do it online. I don't do it by phone. So that the little shitbags don't get to see fuck all. You have to guess. And then I always spin them young bollocks anyway to send them off on. I know, I like them spending money for nothing and send them down rabbit holes. I used to love that back in the day, actually. Once you saw some, counter-intel can be quite hilarious, to be honest. Because they don't like spending money. So make them spend money. That's what I don't really play them games anymore, but it used to give me a chuckle. Interweb. Well, yeah. Yep, done Paper Mall. Oh, well, Rothschilds were trying to get that in 15 years ago. They pitched government then to buy M6, I think, for 70... I can't remember, it was 70 million, actually. It was cheap. It was 70 billion. So I made a big fuss about that, scracking my eyeballs out. Because that's when I found Maulmutine law, which is the oldest English common law I could find. King Maulmutus, that right to the highway. Jerry says, the grapevine is an excellent analogy. Fits exactly into the mimic versions they create for control. Yeah. David says, Scotland putting in useless cycle lanes and barriers to free movement, roadworks everywhere here. Yeah, I love Scotland, it's a lovely place. But I used to go to quite a few conferences up there in just south of Edinburgh, what's it called? Murray Queen of Scots and all that, a very old, ancient place. In fact, I could have lived there. When I sat there, I thought, I should be living here. It was absolutely beautiful place. I can't remember what it's called. So, you'd have to go, you go M6, then you come off, and then you've got to shoot right across country to Edinburgh. And lovely countryside going across, but then you go through a village, and the police had everybody so locked down, and this is years ago. It was like, fucking hell, this is a bit, oof. You know, I mean, the police have always totally policed the Scottish for years and years. Way longer than here. I mean, it was a shock to the system when they started doing it in England, but the Scots have had that since troubles in the 70s and 60s because of IRA and all the troubles in Northern Ireland. Because, of course, all the troubles in Northern Ireland are because they planted a load of Scots, Protestants, in Ireland. So, you know, they reflected each other, and the police had it locked down in Scotland for years. Brutal policing in Scotland. They started to put that in here with miners' strikes. That's when they started to do that here. Where are we here? So, CIA, CIA is Jesuit. That's Malta. Entirely. Controlled, is what I say. Always has been. Drew says, it's expensive, Sean. Took mum out 2 double G&Ts, £20.50. For 2 drinks? I think I paid £15 off for 3 and nearly had an heart attack. I did. I nearly had an heart attack. That's when I realised I were old. Yeah, there's so many of my generation still out there, but they're just pissheads. You know, like, you see all this skin's fucked. In fact, we lost a compadre this week from school days, Mick McNeil. He really liked his drink, but I think cancer got him. So, yeah. They're all dropping dead. They're all dying, my generation. Alan Watts, the English writer speaking of... Oh, right, the other one. No, it's not him that we're talking about. They were a Scottish guy. Really good at what he did. But he was tied in with UK column and all them lots, so there's no one who didn't like me. But if you wanted to know what was going on, I watch his podcast every week because he went into detail on every report that were coming out. And it was good because you really... Because back in the day, my websites were different. I was on them every day. I had news feeds. I had fucking all sorts of... I had daily things of chemtrails. They were really interesting web. A lot of the researchers used to go to them because I'd pull up all the global news in a feed so you could just go through that. I had to search the internet. I had to that, and they were really good back then in them days. But I used to put a lot of effort in. It was like this one I've had up since 2015 is just sort of an amalgamation of the best of what I did, or not the best of what I did, what I managed to salvage. Because back in the day, I didn't get it in my head to save everything and back it up, and I was like, yeah, it don't matter. So when they started knocking my websites down, I mean, that's when I thought, oh, okay, now I've lost all that work. But it didn't really matter to me, to be honest. I weren't really bothered. Where are we? Jerry says, a ruse to sell You a brand, I read that as LFX. A ruse to sell you a brand. Ah, yeah. You're better at that than me, Jerry. Treen, hello, Treen! So hard for me to tune in the last weeks. But have you deleted your Proton email? Oh, right. No, what's happened with my Proton is I had to open another because it was full. And I couldn't delete any more emails that are in that one. So I'm not even looking at that now. I'm on another. So, sorry, Treen. I'll have to send you my new Proton mail account. But you can always send them to lifeinthemix22@yahoo.com. That's always available. If a mod can put that up. If you can't get to Proton. I mean, Proton is what I use for law. It's for law that, for me compadres that we're all dealing in law. That's the only email we use. So I have all these different email accounts and they're just for certain groups of people that I know. So if I go to one email, I know what kind of data I'm getting. Another one is another and another. But lifeinthemix22@yahoo.com. It's the first email account I ever had, which is going back to 2007 or whatever. And everybody and his dog knows that. It's never changed. I mean, that thing has got so many millions of emails in it. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. The amount of emails that are in that account. So, sorry, Treen, but just send us one to life. I can do that for you. Hang on. I can put that in, actually, now. I forgot about that. I can do this. There you go, Treen. Just send it to that, Chuck, and I'll send you my other Proton. If what you're saying is a bit sensitive. Lorraine says, Treen, hi Treen, you used to comment on Sheep Finds podcasts. Hope you are well, Treen. Ah, there you go. So, two guys know each other. Excellent. Sean, Midlothian. That's the place you're talking about. Craig Miller Castle. Mary Queen of Scots in prison there. No, what's it bloody called? Dalkeith. Just below Edinburgh, there's it's like I don't know if it's a monastery or something, but she had something to do with that as well. And James I. In fact, when I was there, one particular time, I got the distinct impression that James I was in there on the unseen, and he actually answered one of my comments that I made to myself, and that's James I, by the way. So they're very important places, these, if you're a bit that way and you can pick it up. But yeah, I had some exceptionally interesting experiences at them places. Like Silsbury Hill and all these places. I've been around all these places. I've stood on top of Silsbury Hill. I have to. If I go past it, I have to get out and go up it. Even though you're not allowed, I don't really care. I'm up it. And it's quite a vibe on there at top. But don't look sure. Arbroath Abbey. Is that what it's called? I can't remember what it's called. What a smart place. It's, you know, you go down and think, and it's got all them, what do they call them? I forgot. An armour builder. All them fancy thing. Oh man, I just felt so at home in there. But then I do go, if I go in any stately home, anywhere in the country, I just feel like that's where I should be. That's my gig. Not living in fucking Hackney. You know what I mean? Anyway, it is what it is. So not Midlothian, no, it's Dalkeith, that's the place I'm talking about. Dr. Ivor, says LFX. Dr. Ivor. I'm just not as good as Jerry on that. Jerry, you'll have to translate that. David says, here's what ye could have won. Well, yeah. Tree says, an invitation to revisit the series still stands all right. Oh, yeah. Now, the thing is, right now, I'll tell you straight, Teen, honestly. I've actually just managed to have a few days off where I didn't have to blitz my brain. But this council tax thing has been just fucking intense. It really has, because these bastards are insane. And it's like, I just haven't given up. I'm a pit bull. You know what I'm saying? I'm a pit bull, and I've just boom, 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 boom. Just I've been so busy. Everything else has had to take a side thing. I've got fucking emails coming out my arsehole that I haven't opened yet from various connections I've got. Because this has just took so much of my attention. That's why I've not done anything that normally I would do. So I'm not ignoring you, Treen. And if you have an email, send me an email again and send it to Life of the Mix, and I'll send you the address of the new Proton. And I will come and visit you, because I'll come and have a look at Roslyn as well while we're there, and we can have a chill out. If there's anywhere else you want to go, we can go while we're there. We'll make a day of it. So I will come and see you. So you sent one to Life of the Mix 20. Did you? That came back. Well, that shouldn't. Well, I don't know what to say to that, Tree. Maybe you'd be... Well, I have a funny feeling that... You see, they're not happy with what I've done with this law, because I've basically shown them up for what they are. They've not got any blag past me at all. Not a one. I can see the whole game that they play, these people now. And I don't think they'll like it. So maybe they're just trying to stir a lot of things up. But blocking you, I can understand why they're blocking you. You've got my telephone number, haven't you? But then see, that's another thing as well. I've got two, and two other ones I haven't been taken out of me, so I've missed a load of stuff. It's like I said, I need to catch up. I'm so behind on so many things. It's quite ridiculous. I did do a bit of a catch up on quite a lot of things in this last 4 days, but now I have to crack back on again because the game's moving forward again, so I have to get back stuck into that malarkey. You're better off giving me a ring in evening, because usually in day, that phone's not always with me. Don't give up, Treen. Have I got your email? I'll have a check, see if I've got your email in me thing, and I'll send you another number. Big E says, Alan Watt is who you are referring to, Sean. YouTube channel called D-Bess. Or Breaking Through the Matrix. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the guy. He didn't like me, but he was fucking good. He put some good stuff out. I always listen, every week I listen to his podcast. Love Alan Watt, he's missed. He were good. He were very good. He was very precise at what he did. And that, of course, is a true journalist. Yeah, Dalkeith, Duke of Buccleuch Estate. I live 3 miles from there. Are you only 3 miles from that? Oh. Right. Okay, well, that's groovy. It would be nice to travel up there again. I haven't been up for a long time. Melrose Abbey, says Treen. Is that what it's called? I can't remember, Treen, honestly. That bug house. Declaration of Arbroath, yeah. But Scotland's a beautiful place. I mean, I get on with Scottish people like an ass on fire. I don't think I've ever met... Oh, one Scottish guy that I didn't get on with. That when I worked at Langs, he was a banksman and I was a concrete ganger, so we didn't have much choice to work together. And we just didn't get on. Just a clash, I think, at first. But then I'd moved on to another job and we were like in between big jobs. And he came on and he had to work for me then. And you know what? We got on like... once we got over that... I'm tough with the new shit. We got on like an ass on fire. And that guy, in truth, if I'm honest... He, in a sort of roundabout way, set me off on this journey because he suggested I read a book called Chariots of the Gods. And I did. And that funny enough, wasn't the start, but it was the beginnings of me going, and that would probably be about 1991. But I didn't really crack on until 93. But yeah, I mean, I get on with Scottish guys. I get on with Scousers. I get on with most people. I've got to be honest, I do. But yeah, not everybody. There's always twats around, but yeah. Where are you? On the river, says LFX. Oh, driver, yeah. Good idea, on the river. That's a good one and all. That's twice tonight. You've excelled yourself, LFX. I get it, Sean. I've been trying to help my pal sort out the council tax. Fabulous. I'll look forward to that, Sean. Well, yeah, okay, but oh my God, girl, believe you me, unless you're prepared to go through hell and write shitloads. I mean, this file now, if I put, it's like that. Conditional acceptances and stuff. It's the worst one by far to do battle against because these bastards are pit bulls. They're but the thing is, they're thick. They're thick. They only have the power while they have you in fear. And they only have you in fear if you don't grasp what they're saying. And what they're saying is absolute fucking infantile garbage, piss, and shit. And I'll tell you what it is. They're going to be in for a fucking shock. These bastards, I'm telling you now. So if somebody's helping cancer attack, oh, good God, girl, unless you're prepared to go through... Because it's been 6 months now that I've been on this. I keep saying 3 months, but it's actually 6 months. Oh, I wouldn't advise anybody to just get stuck in. And hopefully, let's see where this goes, and then we might have a stratagem. But because I think if I would attack this again, it would be a lot quicker. Because obviously, a lot of stuff I've done, I wouldn't have to do again because I've got the data. I know exactly what they're doing. They've shown me everything, the entire game. They've shown me, yeah. So. Yes, don't worry, I've been so well either, but I'm still here. You're not been so well? Oh, girl, that's not good. Oh, you're doing alright, kid. Jerry says, that could be Dry River also, LFX, sticking with Alvaro to Dry Dock. Oh, 3 miles, that's great stuff, excellent. Arrival on the road. The link. 3 marks from Rosalind, 2 and Temple. So how long have you been using conditional acceptance notices? About 3 years. They're fucking dynamite. You just got to get it right. And you really got to give some thought to what you put in that conditional acceptance. Because you've got to remember it's a counter offer, in effect. But it's not actually a counter offer, but it can be if you word it wrong. You see, it's so important how you word what you put in them as to whether it's conditional acceptance or a counter offer. But then remember, they've made you an offer, you're coming back saying, yeah, okay, I'll accept your offer as long as you can do this. There's no fucking end to what you can put in them. None. They're so important, and I've been using them for quite a few years, but only in this last 6 months have I really, really come to recognise the value. Because they're a contract. Once honestly. I mean, hopefully down the line we'll be able to discuss it properly. But unbelievable. The conditional acceptance is an absolute... Like the statutory declaration or solemn declaration is also a dynamite instrument. They're just solid, but you've got to have the confidence in them to know that they're solid for them to be solid. There's no wavering on it at all. Where are we there? What time are we? I've really done 2 hours. I can't believe I can pop on me. So about 3 years, I reckon. Mew. Crazy stuff with that council tax between the council, the sheriff and the courts, all shifting blame on t'other. Well, they're all in a fraud. It's all a fraud, every bit of it. There's no court orders because they're not signed off by a judge. All these magistrates, judges, everybody, they're all corporate, but I've got them. I asked them a question 2 months ago and I said, look, are you a corporation? And they sent it back saying, no, we're not. Then, a couple of weeks ago, we had some communications where they were calling me a customer. And I'm like, fucking customer? And then saying, oh, we can't handle, I want your name at registrar, court registrars and court director. And they were so we ask them if they want to give you it, but if they don't want to. Well, that's not fucking Nolan principles, is it? That's corporate garbage. So the one that I've got them for saying they're not, and then I've got them showing that they clearly fucking are. That's fraud. That's fraud. That's a lie, and I'm going to fuck them. I've got a judge for concealment. I've got the CEO of the Council for Concealment, and these are fucking big charges, offences, prison time and stuff. It's unbelievable. Just let them show me exactly what they do and I've got it. Because they depend on you not seeing it, what they're doing and what you've got them on. But unbelievable. But you get them in a contract, they're in a contract. Everything they do after that is, well, what the fucking hell, do you not understand what a contract is? Then you've got them on these court orders not being court orders, and that's Civil Procedure Rules 5A, 5.3. Very clear. Very clear. Now, I believe there were a King's Bench ruling as well, so it's case law. Everything has to be signed off. It's a blag. So private corporations have come in and blagged you to get into your estate, to get you to credit their debt. Yeah. Trina says, I started using the context that I said 4 years ago. RECV measures, right up to public notary, but then was told to scrap it, including using legal maxims. Who told you to scrap it? You see, this is the thing, and this is so important, and I have tried to get this across to everybody always. If you don't understand what you're doing, you will not have any confidence in what you're doing. If you don't have any confidence in what you're doing, they'll see it. And as soon as they see it, they're like fucking jackrabbits. You really got to trust what you're doing to the point you know what you're doing. And watching some interesting stuff this week, and about how you just time up in litigation. Just time up, innit? Because then nothing's happening. They're getting nowhere. You might not be achieving like a complete and utter success, but you've tied them up, innit? And they can't do fuck all. You're not paying any tax. You're not doing this. You're not. And I like that. I've took that on board this week, and I thought, that's a fucking good idea. Because you can do this forever. You can time up in litigation forever. You really can. And as long as you keep everything solid, what you're doing, yeah, it's been interesting anyway, honestly. Yeah, agreed. Sheriff claimed he got a summary warrant from the court, but the court said her name wasn't on it. Told us to get back to the sheriff, third-party influence. The sheriffs were, I don't know what it's like in Scotland, but they were disbanded in 2006. They're just a ceremonial gig now. The guy's telling me to use contact detection. Fucking hell, man. What are you doing with that clown? Venetian? What are you doing with him? Oh, girl, all I can say is he's fucking right. He is a clown of all clowns. He doesn't know what these ass are. I said this about 2 years ago, and I said, well, look at this. People were pointing him out to me and saying, you need to look at this guy. So I subscribed to his thing and got his things. And I said to you all, I'll look at his paperwork. Didn't I? And I looked at it and I said, don't go near this guy. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I told you that years ago. Oh, girl. Honestly, you have to get stuck into this yourself and learn it. Like, now, I have to go back now to the Bills of Exchange Act and study it again, properly. You know? Because I've sort of skimped on it a bit, and I know that I don't fully understand a certain aspect of some of this trust law. And so I have to now go back to it and understand it, because I don't. And it's hindering me in some ways. It's not hindering me on this gig that I'm doing at the moment, but on the reversion, that's an hindrance, because I'm not putting the effort in that I should be, because I'm not as fantastic and amazing as I thought. And, you know, none of us are perfect, none of us are infallible, and I have to kick my own ass, because nobody else kicks it. Well, actually, no, I've got one guy who kicks my ass. It does kick my ass. But more times I have to kick my own ass because you can't blag it. You have to be so confident in what you're doing. And that only comes about by fully understanding what it is you're doing. So if you want to use conditional acceptance, you better understand what it is. If you're going to use solemn declaration, you've got to know what it is. What its power is. Yeah? And there's a full act on the statutory declaration explaining what it is and its power. But yeah. Same with notary. If you get something notarized, you understand what that means. It means the judge has to acknowledge it. I was led astray a few times by some of these freedom groups, but now I know all in the learning. Yeah, it is in the learning. You're right, Treen, but fuck me, Benicia. Oh my God. I mean, I don't even believe his kid got took away. I think that was another blag like Tommy Robinson for money. Just send me your money. It's an emotional cannon they put out. And the people fall for it, man. They do. You never hear me playing them games. And in the past, I've been skinned. You know, I've done some live streams sometimes, and I've had fuck all. I might have even eaten. You know? But do I come on here and have a fit? No, I don't. Because it's my fault. It's my problem. Not yours. But yeah. You've got to know what you're doing, chick. Otherwise, you're in trouble. You really are. But don't copy these nut jobs. Look, if you find something that they're saying is interesting, go and study it in its entirety so you know what it is. Don't take them at the word and just... because you're heading for trouble. And with that, I don't think we need to go in any of the nonsense that I put up because it is nonsense and we can save it for next week. But I've done a lot of yammering tonight to say I didn't really set up a live stream, which I haven't done for quite a while because of the simple fact I'm editing this stuff. So I'm behind on everything. Pinch of salt, I don't blame a word of it, to be honest. I mean, if it were, it's a sad thing and terrible, but what the fuck did he do to have that? So I just don't, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. But, I'm not all-seeing and all-knowing. You know what I'm saying? I don't fall for it now, I've learned the hard way. The other was to Mark, Kish and Christopher, another. He shafted me for 180 quid. For FO. Hasn't he been sectioned? Somebody were telling me. Krishna, he's been sectioned, hasn't he? I believe. But, oh, hello. Mr. Crayfly on the old... yeah, well, you're late in season. You're usually a bit earlier than this. Well, with that and the Crayfly joining us, I'll say thanks for joining, mods. Thanks for modding. And let's hope the weather keeps up and we get more sunshine before... it comes down to the old winter months, and only one thing to say really, and that is till the next time.
electronic